as French, but you will hear in Italian there. We invite you to participate actively. During the whole webinar. Use the chat function, speak when you are in the groups, and share your reflections and contribute. We really look forward to hearing the different experiences of working with migrant and refugee communities from your own countries. And that's what will enrich the experience for all of us. So please do actively. We also invite, if you are an Italian speaker, kindly click on the participants button. Then when your list of participants shows up at the top, you will see your own name. Click on more, and you can click rename. And can you put Italian if you speak Italian and you would like to be in the group for Italian speakers? Otherwise, we will not be able to identify you to put you in the correct group. So if you are an Italian speaker, please click on participants button. When you see the list of participants, click on your own name. There's a small blue button that says more, click on that. And then you have a button to rename your name. So just add Italian at the end so that we can know that you would like to be in this group for Italian speakers when we have breakout rooms. So those are the technical instructions I wanted to give. If you have any challenges during the webinar with anything technical, please use the chat and ask, and we'll happy to help you as much as possible. So I think that's the main introductions. I'm going to now hand over the webinar to our moderator for today, Alexandra. Alexandra is the coordinator of the Network for Dialogue at KAICID International Dialogue Center. Alexandra, I invite you to take over.
Thank you very much, Suchit. Good afternoon, good evening to all our participants and presenters today. It's really my great pleasure and honor to be moderator of the webinar, one among many that within the Solidarity Project you will organize. And the title of today's webinar, as Suchit already mentioned, is the role of education in promoting learning to live together among migrant, refugee, and host communities in Europe, with the main objective to build dialogue on the role of education in strengthening interconnectedness and solidarity between people of different backgrounds and help promote learning to live together among migrant, refugee, and host communities in Europe. I would like also to stress that during the webinar, we are considering the needs of different communities and how they can live together rather than just asking refugees and migrants to integrate. And today's agenda is quite rich. We have 2.5 hours in front of us and really a good space for dialogue, where we are going to hear from our panelists brief inputs on their end, which will provide also a solid background and introduction for the discussions that we will have after their presentations. So plenary dialogue with questions and answers is foreseen after the presentations, and the breakout groups as following, where in smaller teams we are going to tackle some of the questions provided by our organizers and going into smaller group discussions where we are hoping to have a list of recommendations by the end of the webinar to be presented in the plenary again towards the end of this gathering today, and also have again space for dialogue and your questions, where we are going to share experiences from different countries, as we are coming from a variety of countries and also backgrounds in our work with refugees and migrants and experiences in the field of education. In the end of the webinar, we are going to provide also some conclusions and ways forward, as well how the project Solidarity will look like in the future, what are the next steps. So I wouldn't like to prolong any further because we have a really exciting group of speakers in front of us. We have 5 panelists today who are going to present, each of them around 5 minutes to present and answer some of the guiding questions that we provided for them in order to tackle the topic we are addressing. And it is my great pleasure and honor to invite the first presenter, Mr. Murtaza Kalandri, who is interpreter, cultural mediator, former beneficiary of KSPM IRP, Integration Center for Migrant Workers, Ecumenical Refugee Program from Greece, to actually address and answer possibly the question, how has education supported you to feel included and part of the Greek society? What made a difference in the type of education you received and what contributed to it? As well as if you can, if you are able to also address some of the challenges that you faced in that process. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to hear more from you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Let me start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope to find every beautiful single soul here in a good health and happiness with all the things that are happening in the world today. It's such an honor and privilege for me to be here among these amazing souls. So let me jump back on the track to start introducing myself. My name is Murtaza Kalandri. I am 18 years old. I was born in Afghanistan. I'm a recognized refugee. I'm 18 years old. Actually on the wrong side of 18, I'm gonna be 19 next month on the 17th of April. Please feel free to wish me a happy birthday from now on. All right. As I said, I was born in Afghanistan. My mother language is Farsi Dari, but I can speak some other languages such as English, Greek, Urdu, and German. You will understand how I learned them when I tell you my story. I came in Europe in 2017. The reason why I came here is probably clear: war and terrorist attacks. I left Afghanistan in a very early age and I moved to Pakistan. I grew up there, I went to school, but the problems didn't leave us. There were often terrorist attacks. There were as well, terrorist attacks as well. My mother became afraid of my life and my future. So she decided to send me here in Europe. I don't want to really remember that journey. It was really difficult learning experience for me. It was a difficult journey, but it was a learning experience. Anyways, I first arrived in Greece and continued to go to Germany by mistaken. Eventually, I came back to Greece, to this beautiful country, and my uncle took me to the organization which I am right now working, and to take care of my asylum procedures. There I met the beautiful soul, Ms. Athanasia Kosiatu, and some other amazing people who helped me always through the years from the first day until today. I'm really proud and blessed to have them in my life. I had some amazing experience in the terms of education, but also some not good ones. My first year in school was probably the best experience that I've ever had in my entire life. The teachers were so kind, so good. They helped me a lot. Even though I couldn't speak a single Greek word at my first day of school. But by the help of those amazing teachers, I managed to learn Greek in just 2 months, not perfectly, but I could talk and understand. When I finished my first year of school, we had to move to an island because my uncle found a job there. My educational experience there wasn't that good. The teachers didn't help me. I was on the hook and had no chance to do anything else. I feel that at least during those years, Greek education system wasn't really ready or prepared for refugees and migrant students in school, and everything depends on the goodwill of teachers. However, there's no good experience and bad experience for my own self. They're just learning experience. In 2018, due to some financial difficulties, we moved to Germany for a better life. The first few months, we really were really difficult to copy with the German system. I had to find a job, and after a lot of struggle, I was hired in a Greek restaurant. I left Greece at that time, but the Greeks didn't leave me at Germany. So I was always there with hanging out with Greek people. Okay, after some months, after a few months, the authorities moved me to a shelter for minors. It was pretty cool and organized. They sent me to schools, sports, and many more. But it wasn't for me. I miss my family, I miss my freedom, and I wanted to leave. In the end, we decided to go back to Greece, a place that I call home, a place that I feel safe, the place that I feel confident, and most important thing, that the place that I feel alive. That feeling belonging here is also what motivated me to learn Greek language better, even though I couldn't continue my school as I had to work because of some financial needs. My hard work has paid off finally. I have now a job that I really love. I work as an interpreter in the legal service of Siniparxis Ecumenical Refugee Program. It's a job I enjoy and also learn from every day. It is true that there were times that I was really afraid of my future. I was lost. I didn't know what I'm going to end up. But now all I am is just excited, and there are big plans ahead. And the most important plan is a promise I have given to myself and to the amazing woman that helped me a lot through my journey, is Ms. Athanasia Kotsiatou, that I had promised myself and promised Mr. Athanasia that I will continue my studies and I will go back to school soon. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming here and joining us, and feel free to ask me any question if I could answer, and that was a part of my story.
Thank you, Murtaza, so much for sharing your story. I continue with what you were addressing just now. Please ask any question you have to Murtaza. Already think about questions that we will address in the Q&A part, because this is really an insightful and important example that Murtaza was sharing of his experience in Greece. And I would like to continue with the context of Greece with another panelist today with us, Dr. Dora Katsamori, a project coordinator, Schools for All, Integration of Refugee Children in Greek Schools, European Vergland Center. Ms. Katsamori, I have a question for you. What kind of support do schools and teachers need to be able to provide education that can help migrants, refugees, and members of host communities to learn to live together, particularly facing increasing distrust and an othering rhetoric in Europe? So the floor is yours in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for your kind introduction. Hello to all. I'm really glad being here with you. And basically, I would like to share my experience through my participation in the project Schools for All, Integration of Refugee Children in Greek Schools. It's a project implemented by the European Vergland Center with the support of the Greek Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs and the Institute of Educational Policy. And it has AA grants. The main aim, it seems that it doesn't work. I'm trying to. Okay, great. Super. The main aim of the project is just to support the schools with refugee children, how to ensure a safe and democratic school environment for all students. So for me, this is the main answer to your question, how to ensure that all students, even if we're talking about immigrants, refugees, or even any group who experience any kind of exclusion, could feel welcome to the school environment, and the teachers could provide to all the students a quality education as needed. So we follow a whole school approach, and we are trying to involve, of course, school directors and teachers and parents, and in some cases, local community as well. And this is really, really important. And it was obvious, especially during the lockdown period when the schools in Greece and in most of the European countries, of course, were closed. it was really obvious how the community tried to support each other. And this is really important. So the main aim of our project is just to support the teachers, how to train them, to ensure and make the students to feel welcome. So during last year, when it was the first year of our project, we tried to, with a great team of experts, we tried to train a team of regional trainers and to support 18 secondary schools with refugee children, with almost daily visits of our regional trainers to their places, to their schools. I provided them educational material, even digital ones, or even we tried to support and implement with them action plans during the whole school year, where these action plans based and focused in this approach, how to make all students to be involved in the school community, how to feel welcome, and how the teachers could approach each other and could find ways to make that real. And it was really, as some first results of the implementation of our project, this was one of the outputs, that the teachers felt that they belonged to a group who shared the same ideas, the same thoughts. And this is also one of the aim of our project at the end, just to create a network of schools who share this mission, this idea. And I would like also to share with you, these are some action plans of our schools. Of course, they are in Greek, but for some of our Greek participants, it will be clear how we try to approach all this mission. And I would like maybe to add, because I know that the time is limited, with a quote of one of our teachers who shared with us, he really thanked us actually for our support. And he finally added that, you know, we have refugee students in the schools the last 2 years, but this was the first time that we really tried, like a group, teacher group, how we could really support them, how we could really make them to feel part of our community and not just being here with us. This is really, really important. All the members, all the students have to feel welcome, have to feel involved, to feel active, to have the space to make their voice to be heard, especially for issues that really affected them. I think that my time is limited now. Of course, I am open to give you any answer you need after, if I may, and especially to share more of my experience, because I'm really, really happy that I'm part of this group. And I think that all together, working like a network, sharing the same mission, we can make the difference. This can happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dora, for this very brief but to the point overview of your project. And I believe there will be time for more questions to you in the Q&A part, and also in the smaller groups where you will be able to share more experiences from the ground, from the project you are doing in Greece. But it is really interesting one and important one, and all the activities that you have just mentioned and presented in your slides. So thank you very much. Our next presenter is coming from Unicef, Europe and Central Asia Regional Office. Her name is Ms. Malin Ljunggren-Ellison. She's a senior advisor for education. And it is my great pleasure to welcome her and to ask her a question. What are the challenges and barriers in implementing inclusive education for migrants, refugees, and host communities? And what are the role of governments? What policies should be strengthened and further developed in Europe? So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. And indeed, it's a pleasure to be on this webinar, and the conversation is very timely, as we experience multiple layers of crisis, including the rise of xenophobia, discrimination, and intolerance. And I'm here to learn, as there's so many practitioners. So I will take a slight different scope. According to UNHCR, there are 80 million people that are forcibly displaced of which approximately 40% are below the age of 18, and refugee children, asylum seekers, and children of migrants constitute a significant share of the out-of-school children in the world. The challenges for children needs to be recognized. The journeys often coupled with risking their lives, exploitation, abuse could happen, but also the vulnerability of reaching the shore of the European territories and the socioeconomic situations of the family, social isolation, and at times living conditions in the refugee temporary camps. And for governments, we can see that rules and regulations are the essential structures of democracy, and the prolonged process of receiving the permission and asylum seekers to stay in the country are a challenge for planning and integrating children in the education system, and particularly a stress for children and for school personnel. Next slide. Unicef support and advocate governments in the region of their commitments they made for the Convention of the Rights of the Child. And as this is the most ratified convention of all times, it has been translated to national laws to safeguard the rights of all children everywhere, always, regardless of the gender, disability, origin, or religion, and according to the non-discriminatory principles. In addition, in 2015, we agreed, we as the people, of the 2030 agenda and the SDGs, and UNICEF assist countries to monitor the progress and act on the commitments that all countries in all contexts have done, regardless of wealth, location, gender, and migration status. In addition, there are several others, and one of them that is worth mentioning today is the Global Compact of Refugees, understanding that international cooperation is a must for sustainable solutions for refugees. Next slide. Yes, and we as UNICEF believe that policy needs to be based on a rights-based approach to education. In a humanitarian agency, we are guided by core commitments for children as we assist countries to provide the right to education for refugees as an immediate situation, sometimes in a humanitarian response. But we would like to advocate for sustainable solution and inclusion at the so-called humanitarian development continuum. And UNICEF, in these core commitments, we see that there is a need to meet the children where in their specific situation. And therefore we see that the mental health and psychosocial situation is needed, as trauma can stand in the way of learning. Language, as our colleague already had mentioned, is another barrier, and we believe that this is critical, and both in terms that we would like to provide as far as possible instruction in the mother tongue, but the language in the host community is the key for everyday life in that society. We, in the inclusive education, what does it mean and what is the approach? We see that it's needed to have an intersectorial whole government approach, which could mean that the relevant institutions and ministry need to collaborate together. In schools, we approach for a whole school approach for both teachers and principals, and all school personnel understand what the inclusive education approach entails, seeing the child and understanding the need for personalized learning, embracing diversity, and also the need for training for teachers. We have seen that preparations, assessment, and involvement are key to make this happen. And last but not least, there is a need to have a whole community approach, both reaching out to the host community as well as the refugee community in place. Next slide, please. We have also seen, you must underline that you are really the experts here, but what we can see that in order to enhance learning to live together, we see that there is a need to combine the learning to know, the learning to do, and also, as I explained in the social and emotional learning, learning to be. So if I could provide the next slide, please. Here we have two examples. And I think that this is also needed to share good experiences between us in this room and beyond the room. And what we see here is, like the other colleague before me, stressing the importance of being seen, being welcome in the classroom as being one of the critical dimension. And learning to live together, we need also to use experimental teaching techniques as role play, creative projects, using art and music as well, to reach out to students that have minimum language skills at the host community. So in short, I will try to wrap up. I think that there is constantly a need to recommit of the international agreements and the conventions, starting from a rights-based approach. And that it's shaped for us to create a better world and safeguard a culture of human rights and tolerance. Collaboration that is here, that also is happening in the ground. And also we would advocate, as I did before, for policies of inclusive education. And last but not least, in those agreements, there are already excellent wordings on how to create peace, tolerance, acceptance for diversity, and enhance culture for sustainable and peaceful societies. Let's use them. Over.
Thank you, Malin, very much for your presentation and also for bringing the Unicef perspective to our webinar today and stressing out the importance of the whole community approach, which is really reflected in the speakers we are gathering today and the way we are approaching to this topic and discussing some of the challenges, but hopefully giving some recommendations as well. I would like to continue with our next presenter from Italy, Professor Marilena Pelonero from Istituto Comprensivo Martin Luther King, Caltanissetta. It is my great pleasure to welcome Marilena and ask her a question. What are the main needs of children and young people in the educational context you work with? And what good practices can you share of successful educational practices that foster inclusion and learning to live together? So Marilena, the floor is yours.
Buonasera a tutti. Sì, mi sentite? Buonasera, sono Marilena e insegno presso l'Istituto Martin Luther King Pietro Leone di Caltanissetta. Nella nostra scuola il dirigente e tutti i docenti hanno a cuore l'inclusione e la valorizzazione di ogni persona. La realtà nella quale vivo è multietnica e multiculturale, perché nella nostra città è proprio un crocevia di arrivi, di persone che scappano dai loro paesi e vedono nella nostra realtà un barlume di salvezza. Molte di queste persone sono stati minori non accompagnati che qualche anno fa hanno frequentato la nostra scuola. La prima esigenza di questi ragazzi è sempre quella di essere guardati, accolti e amati. Un'altra esigenza è quella soprattutto di avere gli strumenti culturali che permettessero di cancellare la loro identità, ma di costruire un'identità arricchita con quella italiana. Abbiamo subito intuito che poteva essere per noi una ricchezza personale. Abbiamo allora portato avanti un progetto insieme agli insegnanti e alla mia amica che si chiama Scuola e Persona, che tende a valorizzare ogni persona. Come si vede nella slide successiva, sin dai primi giorni, la slide successiva, potete mettere la slide? Ok. La seconda, un'altra, la successiva, perfetto. Abbiamo fatto un'accoglienza che facesse proprio sentire questi ragazzi a casa. Hanno fatto, come vedete, le sagome delle mani dove hanno messo le minime funzioni comunicative. Tutto questo è stato organizzato dai ragazzi italiani con le bandiere perché volevano farli sentire a casa. È stato bello vedere un sorriso, un clima di accoglienza e di felicità tra di loro. Nella slide successiva vedrete invece come subito i ragazzi, potete mettere la successiva, dentro le scuole i primi giorni hanno cominciato ad imparare l'italiano. La forza è stata quella di avere un tutoraggio tra compagni. I bambini più piccoli quotidianamente aiutavano i loro compagni senza lasciarselo dire e non li lasciavano mai soli nemmeno alla ricreazione, con un cuore e un sorriso aperto. La successiva. La slide successiva. Come vedete ci sono stati anche dei momenti di sensibilizzazione alla solidarietà. La prima foto rappresenta un percorso che si chiama Cibo che unisce, dove i ragazzi italiani e stranieri cucinavano insieme, ma non si trattava solo di cucinare, ma di scambiare la cultura. Hanno fatto un ricettario multietnico. E nella seconda invece è stata fatta una gara che si chiamava Una torta per la solidarietà. Tutti i bambini della scuola, attraverso le torte e delle poesie, come vedete lì, o delle lettere, dovevano raccontare cos'era la solidarietà e l'intercultura per loro. La caratteristica quindi qual è stata? Non si è trattata di un semplice percorso didattico, di insegnare soltanto l'italiano, ma di un'amicizia che vince i pregiudizi, che vince i muri. Se andiamo alla slide successiva, vedrete che sono stati anche organizzati dei momenti al di fuori della scuola di amicizia. Questo è l'esempio di una partita multietnica. I ragazzi italiani e stranieri hanno giocato insieme a calcio e subito dopo hanno fatto una merenda. C'erano anche alcuni genitori a fare il tifo. Quindi un'accoglienza che esce dalla scuola e che va nel mondo, che crea questo ponte di amicizia. La successiva vi accorgerete anche di come sono state fatte delle feste insieme, dei momenti ricreativi, che non sono scontati, che nasca un'amicizia. Potete fare la successiva slide. Vedete che sorrisi e che amicizia tra i ragazzi. E questa è la bellezza di questo percorso. La successiva, grazie. Come vedete, siamo andati a trovarli insieme alla mia amica e altri ragazzi in comunità durante il periodo di Pasqua, proprio nella comunità di seconda accoglienza dove loro vivono. E facciamo la Pasqua, tutto ciò che serve, il Natale, per non farli sentire soli nemmeno il pomeriggio. Ma Vedete anche a Carnevale a scuola come ci siamo travestiti tutti insieme e abbiamo fatto una festa di Carnevale multietnica riguardante ogni paese del mondo. Nella successiva vedrete che i ragazzi stranieri hanno voluto dare adesso loro qualcosa agli italiani perché hanno ricevuto amore. Nella prima slide vedrete la colletta alimentare. Si chiedeva di raccogliere del cibo che poi verrà distribuito tramite delle convenzioni alle persone povere del territorio. Nella successiva invece a scuola, i primi di settembre, i ragazzi hanno aiutato nella raccolta di materiale scolastico per i poveri, che poi saranno distribuiti a tutti i bambini che non hanno la possibilità di avere penne, quaderni, diari, zaino o qualunque altra cosa. Hanno ricevuto ma hanno voluto dare. Quindi una solidarietà reciproca per condividere il senso della vita. Possiamo anche girare la successiva. Qui questa riguarda una mostra che si chiama Nuove Generazioni, che rappresenta esempi di successo, di integrazione di successo, di un'identità arricchita che non cancella. Vedrete Yusuf che poi racconterà questa esperienza, che ha voluto raccontare, qui siamo in Calabria, e ha voluto raccontare in un convegno di presentazione a tutti i ragazzi della scuola come è stato bello essere accolto e come possono esserci delle esperienze di successo, perché quando qualcosa di bello accade va raccontato. Vediamo la successiva. Questo è un momento molto importante e grazie a questo progetto, in occasione del Dono Day, della giornata nazionale del dono, siamo stati ricevuti in Sala Clementina da Papa Francesco. Questo è stato veramente un momento commovente. I ragazzi, dopo aver raccontato quello che era accaduto di bello, per esempio Yusuf musulmano ha voluto dire come era stato bello essere accolto, il fatto di aver trovato una famiglia italiana dove poter condividere gioie e dolori. Nella seconda foto vedete che il Papa sta loro consegnando delle medaglie, perché prima i tre ragazzi hanno cantato, hanno sorriso in questo momento di bellezza. Con uno sguardo paterno il Santo Padre ha detto a tutti che bisogna donarsi all'altro perché il dono è una cosa molto educativa. Mi sento di concludere questa mia piccola discussione dicendo che il dono, questo momento di inclusione è stato per noi prezioso, è nata soprattutto un'amicizia che va dentro e fuori la scuola e che ancora oggi, dopo tanti anni, continua, perché noi abbiamo con tutti i nostri ragazzi creato questo ponte, perché quando escono poi dalle comunità che non sono più minori ma maggiorenni, hanno bisogno anche di un supporto umano. Quindi adesso i ragazzi li abbiamo aiutati a trovare lavoro, una casa e hanno dimostrato che con la loro educazione e l'aiuto della scuola e di tutte le comunità si può creare forse un mondo bello, un ponte dell'integrazione. Grazie a tutti.
Thank you, Marilena, very much for your presentation, for showing us examples from your local community, from your school, also for indicating numerous interactions that happened between refugee migrant children and Italian children. It is really amazing to see your work. And also I would like to continue and hear more about the Italian context from our next presenter. It is my great pleasure to invite Mr. Yusuf Fane, who is a student from Istituto di Istruzione Superiore Senatore Angelo Di Rocca, to welcome him and to ask him a question. How has education contributed to your inclusion in the community and to pursue your professional path in Italy? What were the main challenges you were facing? Which protective factors, people, organizations, or structures supported you on your educational path? And if I can ask you, Yusuf, just to speak a bit slower so interpreters can hear you well and can send us a good English translation for us, all of us here. Thank you, and the floor is yours, Yusuf. Please go ahead.
Salve a tutti, io sono Yusuf Fane, vengo dal Mali, ora ho 20 anni Sono qui in Italia da quasi 5 anni, sono arrivato qui quando avevo 15 anni ed ero molto triste, arrivando qui da solo, senza niente, senza i genitori, senza nessuno, era molto duro per me. Però fortunatamente arrivando qui a Caltanissetta ho trovato, cioè, mi hanno portato direttamente in comunità, in cui che non conoscevo nessuno, che eravamo tutti dei paesi diversi e io che non parlavo in inglese, parlavo soltanto francese e italiano non sapevo niente. Dunque era molto dura a stare da solo, però ho incontrato operatori che erano gentilissimi, molto bravi, che gli piacciono il loro lavoro, che sono stati vicinissimi a me, cioè anche se nonostante delle difficoltà che non ci capivamo, però sempre cercavano di capirmi. Quindi mi hanno aiutato tantissimo. All'inizio ci hanno portato alla scuola, cioè dall'alfabetizzazione che abbiamo fatto là 2 mesi prima che iniziasse la scuola normale. Quindi là abbiamo iniziato a fare l'alfabetizzazione, abbiamo fatto 2 mesi là, poi ci hanno portato alla scuola normale dove ho incontrato, cioè ho cominciato a incontrare il mio successo, che ho incontrato la professoressa Marilena e altri tanti miei professori che sono stati vicinissimi a me e ho conosciuto tantissimi ragazzi che veramente sono dei ragazzi di cuore. Anche ora ci sentiamo, ci vediamo e abbiamo continuato l'amicizia. E io ho fatto tantissimi progetti là per quanto riguarda la scuola. Grazie alla scuola, insieme alla comunità che mi hanno cominciato ad aiutare, mi hanno messo, cioè, prima avevo iniziato a studiare, io studiavo sia di notte che di giorno, nonostante delle fatiche che non capivo italiano, quindi ho imparato così a studiare per poter parlare italiano. E i ragazzi sono stati vicino a me, i ragazzi della scuola che sempre mi erano vicino e cominciavamo a parlare in italiano, mi insegnavano a parlare, se sbagliavo una parola me lo dicevano. E dunque là a scuola ho conosciuto i ragazzi. Le professoresse che sono state proprio vicinissimi hanno organizzato delle feste per farci integrare, quindi abbiamo cominciato di giocare dei partiti, di fare delle partite di calcio, come la professoressa vi ha detto ora. Abbiamo fatto partite di calcio, abbiamo fatto il progetto Dono Day, che io e 2 amici miei che siamo stati a Roma dal Papa in udienza privata ed è stata un'esperienza indimenticabile, cioè anche ora io mi emoziono se vedo le foto con il Papa, nonostante che sono musulmano, però ci ho voluto andare per capire che personaggio è il Papa. Veramente è un uomo di cuore che io le ho raccontato che sto continuando a studiare, mi ha detto continua a studiare, è una cosa molto importante e questa parola mi è rimasta per sempre. E sempre con le professoresse che sono state vicine a noi, che ogni miei compleanni dei ragazzi sempre organizzavano le cose. Anche ora sono instancabili che organizzano sempre delle cose. Lei mi viene a trovare, vengono a trovarmi, mi fanno i regali, io gli dico no, di smetterla, però sempre continuano a farmi i regali. Sono felicissimo ora che in comunità ho cominciato a fare i tirocini, facendo i tirocini al ristorante. Ho fatto là 1 anno e qualche mese di tiro ed ho imparato a fare il lavoro che mi piaceva, che era la cucina. Ed ho lavorato la cucina 1 anno, cioè per tirocino, ho imparato tantissimo. E dopo questo periodo io ho sempre continuato a studiare, nonostante facendo tirocino, studiando, sempre anche ora che studio. Fortunatamente quando sono uscito in comunità ho trovato un lavoro in cucina ed ho fatto là un anno e poi con questo periodo che è un periodo brutto siamo stati chiusi. Per fortuna il datore di lavoro mi ha preso per il cuore e mi ha portato nella sua azienda e ora lavoro in azienda insieme a lui. Ed è sempre continuato a studiare. Se tutto va bene, mi diplomerò questo anno. E poi con i professori, durante l'anno 2019, sì, siamo stati in Calabria, la Merzia, ed è stata un'esperienza meravigliosa che ho incontrato i ragazzi, come sono riuscito a crescere, come tutto ciò che ho fatto insieme ai professori, insieme alla comunità che mi hanno aiutato. Quindi c'è sempre l'accoglienza. Io sono stato accolto tantissimo, cioè anche amici miei, perché tutti noi fortunatamente lavoriamo, tutti noi che siamo arrivati qua e siamo stati integrati, abbiamo amici, anche molti di noi hanno fidanzati, dunque è una cosa meravigliosa, veramente. Sono felicissimo a partecipare a questi progetti ed sono contento. Le professoresse ora io le chiamo mia madre perché ogni cosa che ho bisogno, se gli dico, anche se non le dico, è me. Cioè, non so come riescono a saperle e mi portano le cose, cercano di aiutarmi veramente ed è una cosa meravigliosa e io ora sono molto felice e ringrazio a tutti coloro in qui che mi hanno aiutato nei miei percorsi ed sono contento a partecipare a questo progetto e ringrazio a tutti.
Thank you, Yusuf, so much for sharing your story and congratulations to you. It's amazing to hear the success you have achieved and the support you had in this path of learning and that you are open for continuous learning. That's really important and great to hear from a young person like you. And you and Murtaza received a lot of comments here in chat. People are congratulating you and admiring how much you have succeeded. So thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your story. I would like now to thank you. I would like now to open the floor really for your questions, comments, and reflections. We have already received a number of questions, and I believe that we are not able to answer all of them, but I also invite our speakers to address some of them in the chat. But I would like to start with the first question. And of course, there will be a chance to go into deeper discussion when we have our breakout rooms and smaller groups where there will be a chance also to address some of the questions or topics that our participants, presenters just tackled in their brief inputs. But I would like to start with the first question and to open this discussion for our presenters today. Just give me 1 second to start from the first question. And the first question goes actually to Dora as a follow-up question. Dear Dora, this is an excellent example that you were sharing with us. As a follow-up question, I was wondering how teachers continue to keep in contact with each other and continue to learn about this. So Dora, if you can briefly maybe answer to this question of our participant.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for the question. I also left a short answer to the chat. Mm-hmm. So our approach is it's here to organize regional or local academies where school participants are invited to be part of them and to share with the others good ideas, thoughts, good practices, etc. At the same time, it's really, really important for us to build a network, a school network. Now we're trying maybe to create closed groups, for example, through Facebook or other chats of social media, where our activities and our news have to be updated there, and the schools to follow us. At the same time, we will organize a national conference, maybe 2, as it was initially planned, at the end of the school year, where also the schools of our project and even more will be more than invited to be part of that. And in general, we're trying to organize webinars, to organize meetings or other talks, and the schools of our network are always invited. So in that way, we're trying just to encourage them to be involved.
Thank you very much, Dora, for your answer. Now I would like to go back to the experience from our 2 presenters. And first question for Murtaza. You said you feel you belong in Greece. Our participants are wondering what makes you feel so? How do you think education can help young people from both refugee and host communities to live together?
All right. So as I think we have heard that a lot, that most people say knowledge is the key. And how do I feel that I belong here? And how do I feel, as I said, I feel confident in all that stuff. The thing is that when you are coming to a country, when you're new to a country, you have to accept every single thing in that country. If you want to be the same as a Greek citizen or a German citizen in every country, you have to accept their tradition, their language, their way of living and everything. And that's the way of my thinking, that how I did manage to be a part of a Greek community. And I was always trying to have friends with Greek people more than Afghan people or from other countries. I don't have problems with other people, but the thing is that if I wanted to move forward and to learn something and to be a part of this community and to be a part of this country, I have to learn their way of tradition, their way of living, their way of thinking. I have to think the same as they think and know how they are living, and that helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm. And to follow up on your answer, another question would be, what would you change from your educational experiences in your host countries, and what would you keep?
Actually, as I said, that Greek government wasn't or isn't ready for we don't have really a system, an education system for the migrants, because it was, as I said, my first year of school. It was a great experience. It was because I had some great teachers, because I met some nice teachers. And when I moved to an island, as I said, I got a lot of helps, because I knew how to write perfectly, and the teachers were like writing so, and I couldn't write that fast, and they were like raising the thing, and I was like, I was on the hook, and I couldn't learn better. And there wasn't a system for me, that I was new. I couldn't write that fast, or I couldn't talk perfectly. And as I said, there isn't a good system in the Greek for migrants and refugees.
Thank you very much for also bringing the challenge in front. What were some obstacles for you in the process, especially of language learning? I would come back now to Yusuf and ask him the same question, coming from the different context of Italy. Yusuf, what would you change from your educational experiences in your host country? What would you keep as well?
Scusa, la domanda non l'ho capito bene.
Well, the question is addressed in the process of learning, in the process of education you went in Italy. What were some of the challenges? What did you face? What would you like maybe to be changed changed for some future generations of people who are coming to the country and starting to learn the language, the culture, to familiarize? What were some of the major challenges in your educational experience in Italy?
Allora, io quello che vorrebbe che fosse, cioè quello che mi piacerebbe che se si potesse cambiare è sia da parte dei ragazzi, cioè la maggior parte è da parte dei ragazzi, che ci sono molti ragazzi quando escono del loro paese, del loro continente, molti cioè non vogliono fare niente, la maggior parte, non dico tutti perché ci sono molti pure che vogliono realizzare i sogni e ci sono alcuni pure che non ne vogliono sentire manco, quindi dico la maggior parte dei ragazzi quando lasci il tuo paese è ovvio, è la tua cultura, è tutto. Però i paesi in cui che vieni è normale che tu lo devi rispettare. Devi rispettare, devi imparare la cultura di quel paese. Non devi lasciare la tua cultura, ma devi abbracciare la cultura di quel paese. Quindi è molto importante che se vieni in Italia devi imparare prima la lingua italiana, soprattutto, che ti apre la via cioè ti apre la tua strada. Quindi è molto importante. Se tu impari la lingua, poi tu se trovi opportunità di fare tutto ciò che vorrei, cioè tutto ciò che vorrei fare, quindi prima inizia a fare formazioni, imparando la lingua, poi potrai trovare le persone che dappertutto ci sono persone buone, quindi che ti possono aiutare a fare delle cose che ti piacerebbe fare. Tipo se vuoi lavorare ti potranno aiutare a fare formazione per poter fare il tuo lavoro, quindi è molto importante questo mi piacerebbe che molti ragazzi pensano di fare queste cose perché è importante. Non puoi venire in un paese a fare delle cose brutte o a pensare cioè a dormire, a mangiare senza imparare la lingua, che è la cosa fondamentale per me. E io fortunatamente dove sono cresciuto per quanto riguarda educazione ho avuto tanta fortuna che erano persone tutte erano meravigliose, che avevano proprio voglia di insegnarci le cose. E dunque io mi sono approfittato tanto su questo. Dunque è molto importante questo. Per quanto riguarda educazione, io non c'è tanta per questo mi baso su
So he's not with us.
Su di noi che noi abbiamo lasciato i nostri paesi, che dobbiamo accettare tutto per poter, quindi questo qui è quello che penso io.
Okay. Thank you, Yusuf, for answering this question. A very important and insightful answer. I would like to continue because we have a number of questions to address as well from our participants. And the next question for Malin Ellison would be, how can Unicef collaborate with civil societies and grassroots organizations to promote learning to live together in education for migrants and refugees?
Thank you for that very important question. And I think that this on this regional level or global level, I think this is an excellent opportunity for sharing experiences and also that we work in a different sphere. So collaborating with civil society and faith-based organizations is key for us. In terms of a practical collaboration on the ground, I would say that UNICEF is already working with a lot of civil society organization, and I would recommend to reach out to UNICEF country offices in the respective countries. We have one in Greece that has been established in a country where we normally don't have UNICEF country offices, but there is in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, Moldova, and Western Balkan countries and Eastern Europe countries. And we are very much looking forward to join hands together and tap into the practical experiences, both from working actively at the school level, but as we had heard from our young colleagues, the importance of actually listen to refugee youth and children themselves, and let them be part of the solution. So thank you for that question, and please reach out to colleagues, and I can provide with contact details after the meeting.
Thank you very much, Malin, for your answer, and also for stressing the need for listening, also for different voices, for refugee and migrant voices as well in this discussion, and acknowledging that they should be part of the solution when we discuss education and education policies in particular. And I would like to read a comment that we have received for Marilena. Dear Marilena, it is very important hearing from you about inclusive identities and how being inclusive that does not mean to cancel oneself. Personally, I also find it very crucial that pathways to solidarity are reciprocal, not only for welcoming, but also for appreciation. Solidarity is a two-way street. Thank you for your examples. So Marilena, you have received this more like comment, not a question, but a feedback to your presentation and for sharing the examples of your work. I don't know if you wish to say something, to comment.
Io volevo ringraziare per avermi invitato, perché per me è stato veramente bellissimo raccontare quello che è accaduto, perché tutti questi ragazzi per noi sono ormai diventati come dei figli e sono un esempio di bellezza. Come vi ha detto Yusuf, la cosa importante è che lui straniero ha dato l'esempio di come attraverso la cultura, il cuore e l'amicizia si può andare avanti. Per noi sì, per noi tutti i docenti, per la nostra scuola che crediamo nell'inclusione e nella bellezza, è stato veramente un dono questo percorso e auguro a tutti di poterlo fare, perché i pregiudizi alle volte possono essere vinti solo con l'esperienza. Ecco perché l'abbiamo voluto raccontare, non parlare ma far vedere che questa sfida è possibile con un gruppo di docenti che mette il cuore in ciò che fa e con questi ragazzi che desiderano apprendere, perché in realtà il percorso fatto non è solo didattico, come dicevo, ma va al di fuori dalla scuola, una solidarietà che realmente riempie il cuore, un modus vivendi di tutta la nostra scuola, ma anche di tutte quelle comunità che oggi sono qui con noi presenti, che ci stanno sostenendo, il centro di accoglienza, tutti quelli con cui siamo stati insieme per costruire questa identità arricchita. Non possiamo cancellare né la nostra cultura né la cultura straniera, ma insieme ne possiamo fare una arricchita, veramente una grande ricchezza. Grazie a tutti.
Thank you, Marilena. And speaking about intercultural experiences, one of the participants is asking a question actually to Murtanza. And the question goes, were the host children interested in your own traditions or cultures? Have you shared your cultural experiences with Greeks? That's the question for Murtanza.
Actually, I think I just answered it, but I would be happy to answer it again so everybody can hear what I just answered. Yes. Actually, I did share my culture and the way of how we were living. Some were happy to hear, but some were like really, they weren't really happy to hear my culture. So it was, I was small and some of them were making fun of me. So I wasn't that good to protect my feelings. So at that time, I wasn't really, how to say, I wasn't really brave enough to not to feel shame about my culture and the way that I was living, because I was living in a Muslim country that most people have heard a lot of stuff about the suiciding attacks, and the small girls are marrying like with the big men like 50 or 60 or 70 years old, and that was too hard for them to hear. And I didn't share a lot of so they didn't like really to hear about my culture.
Mm-hmm. What you are just referring to, Murtaza, is that the need for dialogue is really needed. It's really, it should be really helpful in all the interactions we have, not necessarily only between refugees and migrants and host community, but in general, dialogue, interreligious, intercultural dialogue can be one of the tool for addressing and overcoming differences, prejudices, or any kind of distances that can occur without, when people do not know enough about each other and they don't feel somebody's else identities or cultures close to their own. So dialogue would be the key word, I would say, for such encounters, especially when we are talking about refugees and host countries and host country members. And thank you for sharing this experience also with us and challenges that you have faced. This was really an insightful discussion, I would say, with numerous questions that we have received from the audience. And I believe that you have seen other comments that participants shared about the presentations and how interesting and insightful they were. I would like to say that the next part of this webinar will be dedicated to the small group works. And I would like to ask Suchit, who will guide us a bit in the process now, how we are going to be divided into breakout group discussions and how the work in the group discussions will look like before we get back again to plenary and share some of the recommendations that we gathered from discussions that we will have in smaller teams. So Suchit, I would kindly ask you for guidance now in order to understand how we are going to be divided into smaller teams. Thank you. Yes, and thank you all for presentations.
Thank you for the wonderful presentations, as Alexandra said. Now the space is for us to discuss in smaller groups. And we will have 5 different groups. 4 of them will be transported into a virtual room so that you have a smaller number of people to have a dialogue with. There'll be a facilitator sorry, in each group who will help to moderate the dialogue. One of the groups will remain in the main plenary room as you are. That's because the interpretation feature is only available in this space. When you are taken to a smaller virtual room, the interpretation between English and Italian is not available. So if you are somebody who requires English interpretation, if you're an Italian speaker who requires English interpretation, if you are taken to a separate room, please click on the leave breakout room and come back to this room, because here you will find interpretation. We've tried to ask you to put Italian next to your name so that we can identify those who require Italian interpretation. But in case you have not done so and you are taken into one of the other rooms, please come back to the leave breakout room. Use that to come back to the main room. Sorry. In each of the breakout rooms, we will have about 40 minutes and the facilitator will invite you to engage in a dialogue in 2 rounds. We have 2 different questions that you are invited to discuss. The first question is more about your reflections, having listened to the speakers so far, and also coming from your own context. What are some of the dynamics that you see between these different communities? And when you try to have educational interventions, what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you've experienced? So the first round is more for you to share from your own experiences and reflections. And then in the second round, the facilitator will invite you to identify some concrete recommendations. If we as a group are to make some concrete recommendations, how can we strengthen education in both the formal and non-formal education sectors so that refugee, migrant, and host communities live together better? So in that second part of the group discussion, we would like to have very concrete recommendations that we can adapt at different levels of the education sector, both formal and non-formal. You will find these questions also posted in the chat, and we will also use a software called Google Jamboard, where the facilitator will take notes on that, and they will be sharing the screen, so you can follow the note taking as you share within the group. We will share the link on the chat, and if you wish to add to the notes, you can add yourself directly as well. There'll be 5 different pages. Each page corresponds to the group number. So if you find yourself in group 3, in the room 3, then go to the 3rd page. You'll find the notes from that group. And if you want to add yourself directly some notes to what the facilitator is adding, please feel free to do that as well. You'll find the link to the Google Jamboard that you can open on the chat soon. So those are the instructions. One more important thing is in each group, you have to identify one person to come back and share. So the notes the facilitator will help with, but it's important that one of the group members comes back to help to share what the group discussed within the breakout room. I think those are the instructions. You'll find a button saying join breakout room. Please click on that if you find that coming up for you, and you'll be taken to the respective breakout room. As I said, if you are an Italian speaker and you are taken to a different room, you can feel free to leave breakout room and come back to this room to find interpretation available. So I hope you have a meaningful dialogue within the small groups. The meeting rooms are now open.
Sorry, I don't find these breaking rooms. I don't find it.
You should get a pop-up asking you to join breakout room. Do you get something? If not, Mabruga, you can wish to remain in this room as well. I'll help you. Please, others in the meantime can also feel free to click on join breakout room. Eleonora, the group 5 is here in this room where you are moderating. Give me 1 minute and then I'll hand over to you until we have, if anybody else is having issues to join the breakout rooms, you can raise, and then if not, I'll hand over to you, Eleonora.
Questa è la sessione plenaria o mi invierete voi?
No, Marilena, puoi rimanere qua.
Ok, grazie.
Yes, Marlena, group 5 where you are is going to be hosted in this space, so you can remain here. I'm just checking on a few people who are, Carmen, Bertie, okay. Nazir, Hawi, if you can click on join breakout room. Maria Teresa as well. Maria Dimitriado, Saprio Cecina, if you can please click join breakout room. As well, Stella Otsu, Stora Ramona and Isora. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but if you can click on join breakout room, please, and you'll be taken there. Nikos Georgiou, Antti, and Anne, if you can also click on join breakout rooms. Thank you.
And Suchit, if we are all Italian or Italian speaking in this group, can we speak in Italian or should we continue in English?
This group is mixed with Italian speakers and English, so I think you can speak both languages with the interpretation and continue. Yeah.
That's why I said I have to go to the other room, because here are the majority are Italian and I can't understand Italian.
The interpretation here is available, Mabruka, so you can select the interpretation English, and then you can hear everything in English, and then you can speak in English and they'll hear in Italian. You're not the only English speaker in this group as well.
Hello, I am Maria. I'm from Greece. I didn't get any pop-up also. So yes. Should I stay here?
Yes, some of you are from group 5. So all those group 5 remain here. So okay. You will be with Eleonora. Now I'll hand over to Eleonora, and your group is the members who you find in this room. Thank you, Eleonora. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Suchit, and welcome everyone. We are a smaller group now, so if you want to turn on your camera, if you feel comfortable, so we can physically as possible see each other in this group. So before we move into the Google Jamboard. So very much we will be exploring the questions that Suchit has presented, and we will try to be very concrete in our answers. But before we start, I would like to see if there is one volunteer that wants to report back for this group. So you can either raise your hands or open up your mic and let me know if somebody wishes to volunteer to report back. And again, you can report back both in English or in Italian, so really don't feel shy. Anyone? Anyone that volunteers to report back what the group discusses? Okay, maybe there will emerge a volunteer as we move along. We will need a volunteer that will have about 4 minutes to report in plenary what we have deliberated. So welcome back, everyone. I'm gonna share my screen. And as Suchit said, you've also the link of the Google Jamboard. So you're also welcome to use this functionality yourself and to write up. But otherwise, this is what I'll be doing. I mean, you can see my screen, and I will be really just taking notes, either with sticky notes or with text boxes of your inputs to this discussion. And so that also this will make easier for the person reporting back in the plenary to see these notes. So we are gonna have 2 parts of our discussion today. So the first part is really to retain and to think, I mean, what are the reflections from the panel discussions, and also from your own context and your own experiences, what are the dynamics that you observe between refugees, migrants, and the host communities in your context? And as we said, this is a very open question. I mean, Marilena pointed out in her presentation, and all the other presenters as well, how important it is also to think outside of the school context, but also to reach out broadly to the community. So in your exploration of this question, you can really feel free to also mention that, you know, any extracurricular activity or projects or anything in your mind, please highlight it. And as well as also focusing on the difficult part. I mean, what are the challenges that you face in this work, in the educational interventions, as well as what are the opportunities that you have met in your context? So I think without overdue, I want to leave you to discuss this, and you can unmute yourself and talk, and I will be taking notes. And again, feel free to speak both in English or in Italian. So please, if there is anyone who would like to start. Anyone that is, I mean, maybe working as a teacher, as an educator, or in community centers as well, they would like to share with us their experiences.
Shall I begin?
Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Maria. I work as an educator in a refugee unaccompanied shelter for unaccompanied minors. I've been working here for 1 year. I find this discussion today very interesting, as we can share experiences, and I loved the examples of the speakers before. So what I would like to say is that I recognize that it is very important to cultivate a broadened communication between refugees and the host communities. And we have to always have in mind the rights-based approach on education. So I think that it is very interesting to understand how many difficulties all the minors and refugee children faced until they came to the country that they are now hosted. First of all, I would say that a basic difficulty we face is the language barrier, because most of the times we don't have an interpreter. So it's really difficult for children who cannot speak basic English or Greek to understand the teacher. So the language barrier is the most important difficulty we face every day. And also another difficulty I would also find is the issue of commitment and responsibility, and how you can create motivation in this group of children, because we are working with unaccompanied minors. So they are children who have lost their families, maybe on their travel, or they have left their families behind their countries. So it is really, really difficult to communicate with them and to cultivate the everyday presence in our classes. This is the first things from my side. Thank you all.
Thank you, Maria. And if I may ask you as a follow-up question, and also to reflect on this, I mean, what are the strategies that you personally put in place, for example, when you have a newcomer learner that has difficulties with the language, or when you know that, for example, some of the learners might also be in social-emotional distress, as you said, and so find it difficult to keep being motivated and concentrated on the learning. What are the strategies, really, the tips that you could share with us at the very practical level?
So in a practical level, I could say that most of the times we try to be innovative and to create a safe and friendly space inside the class. So we try to cultivate practices in the terms of non-formal education, such as many activities. We try to create an approach that it is not centered to the teacher, try to put in the center of the discussion the child. So we let the child sometimes to suggest what kind of things he wants to learn. Maybe we let the child sometimes to be the teacher. So he gives us the basic points of teaching inside the class, and then we continue at his in the way that he likes. Also, we are trying to go outside, organize some excursions, not now with the COVID virus problem, but before the lockdown, we could organize some excursions. We also try to find the kind of things that are interesting for them, what kind of different games they play, what kind of different culture, music they like. So we create maybe a class about Eid or about Nowruz that now is coming. And also we try to put some words in Farsi and some words in English, so that they can understand the basic first steps in order to be happy to join in the class.
Thank you. Thank you. This
Thank
was very helpful and also very practical. Anyone else that would like to share along these lines as well, or that, for example, has different challenges or sees as well different opportunities? Please just unmute yourself and share with us. Anyone else that would like to share?
Hello.
Hello, please.
My name is Urania. I come from Greece and I'm an English teacher. Haven't worked with immigrants so far, but as it comes to the educational programs, as much as I know, as far as I know, it's been rather difficult to integrate them in a class. According to their culture, according to their language, their mother tongue, the difficulty raises up the level. We need to understand where they come from, what they've been through, know them better, make them feel comfortable, assure them as teachers and as friends as well, maybe, that we will be there for them in case they need help in any way. In more practical issues, when it comes to educational practice, they will definitely need an approach from another person to help them, motivate them, facilitate them in a way. So we have to be in a role like a parent model, if I may say, having them as our baby coming for the first time into a class, knowing nothing, starting from point zero, and then cultivate the whole environment to put them in a line.
Yes, thank you for this sharing. And I think, Marilena, if I can get back to you, this is also a little bit what has been happening in your experience. Come ci hai raccontato, hai più volte menzionato durante esatto, come sia proprio importante pensare anche al di fuori della scuola e pensare ad un'accoglienza che dove molto spesso l'insegnante o comunque tutta la struttura scolastica si sostituisce un po' alla famiglia, perché comunque tanti di questi ragazzi e ragazze arrivano. Quindi anche un po' sentire esatto da te cosa ne pensi di queste riflessioni che abbiamo scambiato adesso.
Allora, io penso che siano veramente tutte preziose quello che è stato detto. Ci sono delle parole chiave che ho sentito: assisterlo, agevolarlo, rassicurarlo. Quindi assisterlo, assicurarlo, amicizia, approccio motivazionale, ruolo parentale. Sì, servono proprio tutte queste cose, in quanto quando arrivano a scuola questi ragazzi sono proprio persi, non sanno con chi essere, non hanno alcuna motivazione. Quando nella scuola trovano una famiglia, qualcuno che li guarda, allora sono felici. E la questione della lingua è centrale. Come raccontavo prima, e ho sentito che è anche stato fatto qui, ed è bellissimo, per poter conoscerli non è tanto importante far loro le domande, noi non le abbiamo mai fatte, come vivi, cosa fai, ma stare accanto a loro, ma accanto a loro come? Facendoli studiare insieme in questo scambio di cultura con attività motivazionali, come venivano detti, con dei giochi, per esempio quello che vi ho mostrato all'inizio, le mani dove mettono il loro nome, il loro cognome nelle lingue, è già stato un modo per essere per approcciarsi, ma centrale è il fatto che noi devono vedere delle famiglie, ma nelle altre famiglie dei bambini è importante che le famiglie dei genitori, i genitori dei ragazzi che sono a scuola, cominciano quando vedono sorridere i loro figli perché hanno un amico straniero, dirgli che bello, fallo venire con noi. Comincia la scuola e continua l'extrascuola. Per esempio, coinvolgere i genitori, come vi ho fatto vedere nella foto, a fare una partita insieme. Noi abbiamo fatto una partita multietnica. Dove i genitori hanno cucinato e portato il loro cibo. E alla fine la competenza si vede. Perché Yusuf, ma gli altri sono usciti dalla scuola media, per esempio, con 9 su 10. Perché essendo voluti bene anche fuori dalla scuola e amati, si risveglia la motivazione all'apprendimento. Bellissimo quello che avete detto tutti voi insegnanti, proprio bello. Grazie a tutti.
Grazie Marilena. And I think this is again something that is sometimes maybe overlooked, how much the motivation and how much the well-being in the host community is also directly linked to the academic achievement. Non penso, Marilena, che ci siano proprio degli studi, no? Che mettono in relazione come veramente sentirsi bene accolti, sentirsi a proprio agio sia direttamente collegato anche a quello che è poi l'apprendimento e a quello che, come hai detto tu, sono le competenze finali e i voti finali anche, no? Quindi proprio a quelli che in inglese si chiamano gli academic achievements. E penso che forse a volte ci vorrebbe anche più enfasi su questo, perché molto spesso non si vede veramente l'immediata correlazione di questi due processi. Quindi grazie per aver condiviso questo. Unless there are more comments on question 1, maybe I would like to move to question 2, if you all agree. Yes, so I think, question 2 is really looking more at the education system. And it's very much in line also with the question that was asked to our presenter before. If you could change something in the education system, they could enhance the way that learning to live together between refugees, migrants, and host communities is integrated in the education system. What would your recommendations be? So this is very much looking at the whole system. I think many of the initiatives that we saw today highlighted how much the personal initiatives and the personal understanding of teachers is really crucial. But if we take a more systemic view, and so we look at the education system as a whole, what are the recommendations that we could make to create a system that can enhance learning to live together more? Also knowing, I mean, that this is the 21st century, and a lot of the competencies that children need to acquire actually relate to learning to live together in a world that is more and more interconnected. So I don't know if some of you would like to share on this point. Please feel free to jump in and unmute yourself. Maybe I could invite some of the male participants today to share as well for the gender balance. I see here we have Professor Homer. If you would like to share something with us. And Yusuf as well, I mean, feel free to jump in,
yes,
please.
Yes, thank you.
Please, yes.
Yes, thank you. I am a Professor Dr. Omar Najmuddin, Dean of the College of the Law, University of Kirkuk, Iraq. I am listening with you, but I am sorry I cannot speak English very well. Oh, thank you.
This is very good. I mean, what are your recommendations for an education system that could promote more inclusivity and promote more learning to live together? I mean, also from your own context in Iraq, it's a very diverse context where many ethnicities and cultures and religions live together. So what can you bring also from your own education system that could help to strengthen learning to live together in the European context as well?
Thank you. I can not answer very good. Another, I can write with you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Please feel free to do so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also, if you want to chat in Arabic, you can do so. We have other participants that speak Arabic and could help us later to translate your thoughts. So still, please feel encouraged to participate.
Yes, thank you. You can speak Arabic?
No, me no, but there are other participants that can help you out with that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
So is there anyone else that would like to share?
Hello, my name is Allison. I'm calling actually from Michigan in the United States, and buongiorno a tutti quelli che sono italiani. I lived in Italy for 11 years, but I'm better in English, so I'll speak in English. From here, we are working with many people from very different contexts, many different countries. So we have students from the Congo and various African nations. We have students from Nepal and Burma and Thailand, and we have a few from the Middle East as well. So we have so many different contexts and so many different backgrounds. I'm a kindergarten through 12th grade programs coordinator for the Refugee Education Center. So we have so many students in our schools, and you don't know when they arrive what their level is. And so one huge thing that we do to support our students is to really assess. There's a lot of assessment that's needed and testing for figuring out where our students are. We don't just want to assume that our students haven't had an educational background. And so a lot of our students have interrupted learning. They maybe started kindergarten or first grade somewhere, and then they had to move. Maybe they were in a refugee camp for a while and got some education there. And so when they arrive here, maybe they are 10 or 11 years old and they're put into 3rd or 4th grade, but we don't know what their education level is. And so it's very important that we start from the very bottom and work our way up. So start with the basics and figure out where they are, where their learning is, and where the gaps are. like other colleagues have mentioned, if you put them into a regular classroom, they're going to be very far behind. The level is not going to be there for language learning. And so what do we do to fill in those gaps? And what we're trying to do is form some assessments that will help figure out where they're at, right? So start with ABC 1, 2, 3, figuring out letter names and sounds, beginner grammar, beginning math, and work your way up. Maybe they know their addition and subtraction in math, but maybe they don't know their multiplication and they're in high school, right? So figuring out what the gaps are and then really honing in on those gaps, figuring out those areas so that you can help them get to where they need to be academically. And that's not just in English, but also in the other subject areas, right? There's so much vocabulary to be learned in science and geography and other subjects that the language, building the vocabulary up in language will help them in all the other subjects.
Thank you, Alison. And this is definitely a recommendation that is a system-wide recommendation, because very often in our schools, and this is something also we reflected on in the panel, right? We have, as educator, we receive migrant students and refugee students in the classroom, but there is not really a process to assess where they are. Very often this is done by age, but as you said, I mean, the age factor is not the main determinant of a learning path for someone, because there could be experiences of learning in other countries that do not correspond with the learning system that we have. And as well, sometimes the language factor, the language barrier is so huge that it would be better to find a different way to really place the learner in the education system. So I think this is definitely one step that could be integrated in our school systems, because at the moment it's very much of a patchwork. I mean, we don't really have a common European framework for assessing learning competencies when it comes to children in the move or to migrant children. And this is definitely a strong recommendation that we could bring up. So thank you for sharing this, Alison. And may I invite also somebody else to share another or similar recommendation that, again, something that you have learned from experience and that you wish could be integrated in a more systematic way in our education systems. Please feel free to come in and speak freely.
Learning through experience might be another way of getting to know them. Like in asking questions in the class environment about themselves, what their hobbies are, what they like doing, what they would like to do in the future. Simple questions that they can feel free to answer either in their mother tongue or in any other affiliated language they have. They could either act out, as in role playing. It really gets them, it's a really nice educational tool to get to know the language and promote the vocabulary and the structure in any language. So activating it would be a nice engagement as an activity. Being a teacher themselves would make them feel nice being with us. Whatever they have learned, wherever they are, no matter their age, they have something to say. They could present it to us, either on a poster, in any way they want. Making a video, short story, asynchronously, or just by discussing it would be nice.
Yes, thank you, Raina. I think this is really integrating more participatory learning methodologies and therefore also training teachers to apply these participatory methodologies. I mean, role play being one of them, but certainly we can use also like theater, we can use music, as you said, and as well as trying to get to know the learners, but without intimidating them. So really encouraging the sharing and encouraging to understand where they're coming from, but without making them feeling on the spot. So that's also that this could be an informal way that could also complement the assessment that Alison mentioned, because with the assessment, we would tend maybe to focus more on the formal competencies, on the skills that the learners have acquired in their own countries. But then with the sharing in a safe environment of the classroom and with dialogues and role play, we could really get to understand more about the personality, but also, for example, about the socio-emotional circumstances of the learners. So I think these are all very important recommendations that would need to integrate in a framework for really improving. And I see there is somebody raising your hands. Please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Nectaria, please.
Great. Thank you. Well, I like very much the point you mentioned that every teacher has to give something. And this is an important, let's say, kind of new mentality to give value to all teachers. Because what usually happens, we take it in consideration or in priority teachers that are working as primary school teachers at primary schools or early childhood schools, while there are also the teachers that are experts coming from different disciplines, either the teaching maths or sports or whatever. These people could be viable in multicultural settings. So I think that it's important, talking as educator for teachers at university, to give space to all different kind of teachers and to train them, to train refugee and migrant students. This is a priority. Until now, in priority were mainly teachers either for, teaching the main subjects or courses, but not the others one. I don't know, but I guess this is something very important as a change. What do you think?
Yes.
You put a sticky note. Thank you.
Yes, Nectaria. I think this is a very crucial point, and it has to do also a lot with what we call the whole school approach, right? And how important is, for example, to see topics as a citizenship education, as multiculturalism, not just as topics that you integrate in language training, but as topics that are really relevant for all disciplines. So actually, for me, what you're saying is very crucial when we are thinking about teachers training programs for enhancing competencies in terms of multiculturalism, be it intercultural communication, be it listening. I think we have to really work with all the teachers, physical education teacher, math teacher, physics, chemistry, you name it, because this is the whole system. I mean, it's the whole school that has to be welcoming, and it's the whole school that has to be equipped to really create this relationship and to really make the students feel welcome. So I really think this is a very valuable suggestion, and I do understand with you that very often the system gives too much responsibility, for example, to the teacher of the language, right? So la professoressa di italiano o la professoressa di greco, really overlooking the very important role of other teachers. And for example, when we think about physical education and all the beautiful ways that you have to express friendship and motivation through sport, it's really a major challenge and weakness to leave out these teachers from the training in multicultural education. So I think this is a very, very strong point that you made, and I have prepared a sticky note to go with it. Thank you, Nectaria.
Thank you, Eleonora. I interrupt because the other groups are coming back now. So the time for the group work is finished, and we are welcoming back the other participants to the plenary. Thank you, Eleonora, for hosting the group in the plenary before. Let me invite Alexandra to take over.
Thank you, Suchit. Welcome back. I hope you had a fruitful discussion in our breakout groups, and the time really passed quickly, at least in my group. But we came to certain conclusions, to some recommendations, and I hope the other groups as well. So we are going to use the next maybe 20 minutes to present and reflect on those recommendations that you have identified. And I hope that each group has its presenter who is going to share with us some of the conclusions and recommendations from the group discussions. So I would kindly ask the first group presenter to really briefly share with us and summarize the main points of discussion. So I think it was my group, Christina. I welcome you to share and invite you to share.
Hello.
Now, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be very quick. So we had a really fruitful discussion, and we talked about the challenges mostly when it comes to the educational interventions. We found out that one of the biggest problems is that we don't appreciate the role of refugees and their cultural background, and we feel like they don't have a lot to give. So, and also we find out that it seems to lack support from the government and other public, let's say, organizations. And also there is the distribution of the workload between countries is also a problematic aspect. There is a better connection between formal and non-formal education is needed, and also a better cooperation between those who provide education, also the formal and the non-formal. We shouldn't forget that we need to educate minors and also the host countries, the host communities, and face issues like racism, xenophobia, all of these. These were the challenges that we discussed it. And in the next chapter, let's say, we made some recommendations. For example, we said that role models and successful stories, let's say, are needed. For example, like the story of Murtaza and the story of Yusuf as well. And we also need to forget about the idea of a monocultural community, a monocultural society, because there is no such a thing. And we need to help immigrants to engage in the host country and share their experiences. And also, the refugees and the migrants need to have an active participation, and from the part of the parents and the teachers and the community and the government, they need to support them in order to be included actively in the community actions, let's say. And all of this can happen only if we bring formal and non-formal education together, if we connect them. That's it. I think I did a good job, no?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much for sharing from the group one. I would like to invite the presenter of the second group.
Hello to everyone. My name is Van Majakic, and currently I'm the representative of a group 2. In group two participants were Jelly, Veronica, Anna, Konstantinos, Dora, Barbara, Israel. I have to mention them because they are very good people with very good professionals with a lot of experience on those topics. So in our group discussion, we just mentioned some main problems that Eleonora just mentioned also. The first problem, when some refugee children or migrant children come to some countries, there is a language barrier and they need a private support. And also there is bilingual programs that have to be made because of different strategies that have to be made for migrants children and migrants in a whole world of it. And also there is in those COVID-19 periods in different countries, there's a lot of problem of accessing of online classes, and there is a distance between professors and those migrant children and refugees. And also there is funding issues because a lot of countries, especially in Balkans, sorry, they stole money from a European Union, but they didn't make any camps for refugees. They only made tents. So in this winter period, the refugees and migrant children don't have any place to be in it. So there's a lot of private families that they are giving refugees a home, and that is very sad that we don't have any country support. And there is also a lot of big problems when we are speaking about stereotypes and prejudices against refugees. A lot of people and especially in Europe think that refugees are criminals, that they are violent people, but they don't realize any their talents, or that they can bring our community in different level, that they can be also good for us. And there is a lot of discrimination and xenophobia in different schools amongst children. That is very sad. And also a lot of migrants don't have any health support. So there's, I think, big in those countries, especially in Europe and also in Balkan countries. But I will just speak now about the solution. So we just found some main solutions. First of all, we are thinking in a role of education. We have to organize some trainings for our teachers in schools, also our pedagogists, and social workers, because a lot of them don't have any practice working with refugees and or any experience. And also there we have to educate minors. Also we have to make a workshops to bring out those stereotypes and discrimination among children and refugees in those countries. And there is also one big solution, and I think and our group also thinks that is very great. In Balkan region, especially in Europe, the people who are in which we are having a lot of trust are religious leaders. So we find out that religious leaders can be our solution. They can maybe organize some meeting with those refugees and migrants children, and bring also our children from a state and to speak with them, because also our children and parents have a trust in religious leaders. And maybe when some migrants come to our states and our countries, can feel safer if they have a support of a religious leader. And also we have to make some more funding from a European Union or funding or some kind of funding. And also we have to realize that refugees can give us a lot, and we have to bring them actively in our communities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zvonimira, very much for very good presentation and recommendations. from your group. Thank you very much, it's appreciated. I would like to invite now the group number 3 to present, but please keep an eye on time as well, because we would like also to have some time for a round of questions towards the end after all presenters have finished. So who is the presenter for group number 3?
I think it will have to be me, because we forgot to, I was moderating, but we forgot to decide who will be presenting, but I will do it very quickly. And so we were a small group, and we started sharing our own experiences and challenges, and language was one of the main things that were highlighted as one of the main challenges for some of the teachers, where, you know, the children wouldn't speak the local language or wouldn't speak English. So to bring them together or to, you know, try to support them was very challenging. And one of the participants mentioned the importance of creating relations with the children to, in a way, overcome the barrier of language. By building this relation with the child feels more supported and feels, you know, part of the community in a way, even if the language is a barrier. Some also share how in some schools they have support with separate language classes for the refugees and migrants, but also through sports and arts and other subjects that support the inclusion of refugees and migrants. Some talk about using activities for children to express about their own culture. And we talk also, one of the recommendations, creating spaces for maybe festivals, for sharing food, for sharing more about the different cultures that can help the process. And I think in the panel and in the chat, several of the participants were talking about that. We talk about the use of sports and physical education as well as a tool. We share some materials that have been developed. Someone was saying the main challenge is that, you know, children are there, but you don't want children to be quiet, and they are receptive, but they are quiet. And what you want them is to feel, you know, that they are part of the discussions. You want them to they feel part and involved. And so that was one of the main challenges. And we talk about maybe creating peer-to-peer relations, and so that make them feel more at ease. Some of the recommendations that were highlighted is, of course, better training. The teachers need more help. Sometimes teachers have only one support teacher in the classroom with many children in the classroom. So maybe more support for teachers, maybe platforms that for teachers to share experiences, learn new tools, as well as maybe share successful practices. And then someone suggested also the idea of having tutors that can help introduce inclusive education, training for students that will become teachers. So a lot on the training of the teachers, the pre-service and the in-service of teachers. And this idea of tutors, I found also very, very interested to have a kind of body support for the teachers and for having a kind of platform to learn together. So that's maybe in a nutshell.
Thank you, Maria Lucia. Thank you very much for sharing challenges and recommendations from your group. I would invite now the next group to present. I think we have two more. Who will be the presenter from the next group?
Normally it's a group 4.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so hello everybody. So I would like to say that we had an amazing and a fruitful discussion in our breakout room. And we greatly appreciate what the panelists, presented so far. And we liked the testimonies of those positive cases of refugees and migrants. And we wish if there were other testimonies of those people who couldn't successfully, be integrated in those hosting countries, to see what do they struggle with, okay? For fairness purposes. Great. So, it was coincidental that we noticed that our countries were a transition country. So all the refugees that exist in our countries have got a dream destination, which is Europe. They are living in our countries, but they are not wishing to spend their whole life here. Okay, so they are aiming at moving, to the other side of the Mediterranean. Okay, so among the challenges that we could notice, and the refugees may encounter, or they are encountering, is that the lack of language. So these refugees, they skip schools, they skip education. Willing or unwilling. So because they are quite unaware of the importance of education. You see, that's why normally the education is the key element for a good integration in a hosting country. Let me say that those refugees may encounter some psychological problems since they flee, their houses, you see, from persecution, from poverty, from war, and so on. That's why they need to be taken into charge by those hosting countries. So another, what do these countries are confronted with is that, okay, they are receiving refugees, but their schools do not have the capacity to, to give them access to education, you see, to formal education. That's why it's so demanding on those hosting countries to give, every child the right for education. Another key element that we talked about is that these refugees may face, racism. They may face some exclusion. They are not somehow welcomed by the society, by the community. They are marginalized, okay? So this may impact them very negatively. Okay, so some refugees do not have, citizenship. They are not considered as citizens. So they are always the outlanders. They are considered as outlanders. Another, because this may be the cause of many problems, such as bureaucracy, such as, for example, the illiteracy of parents. So they do not have also access to jobs, to healthcare, to work. And on the other side, we would recommend if these, hosting countries' authorities make education compulsory and inclusive. How? Normally, they should, they should sensibilize, they should raise the refugees' awareness about education and mainly the language. If you know the language, this facilitates your integration in the hosting community. Language is the key element for, a successful integration. It is a key element for having access to all the services, and it may give you the feeling, or it enhances the feeling of belonging. So if you have the language, you feel connected with this community. So you can, you can influence and get influenced. You see, it's a two-way, if you want a procedure. That's why, so we have worked on the education and what perspectives can, can open for those refugees. They can, take the initiative in some voluntarian, campaigns. They participate, for example, in, in some charity campaigns, in some, in some sports festivals, you see. So the more they participate in these initiatives, the more they feel, they have the feeling of belonging. They feel to this hosting country. So I guess I could summarize all what we debated in our breakout room successfully. Thank you for being so attentive.
Thank you, Razika, very much for summarizing a very fruitful discussion, I would say, in your group and bringing some recommendations in front of us. I would like to give the floor now to the last group, last but not least, to hear from them. But in the meantime, you can already start thinking about some comments or questions. I mean, from other group participants as well, because we will have some time for that towards the end. So the last group presenter can take the floor.
Yes, hello, my name is Allison Coomer, and we had a good discussion in our group as well. Lots of points that all of the other groups have already mentioned, so I'll keep it pretty brief. In the first section, we just talked about the idea of our students feeling safe and welcome and how to create that when obviously there is this language barrier. And what we kind of summarized in the different tips that we talked about and challenges were to challenge ourselves to create an environment, as mentioned previously by their colleagues, where students can overcome the language barrier through different activities, cultural engagement, civic engagement, activities such as art, sports, modeling, role modeling, doing things, with their bodies, doing things socially, relationally to really build that trust, build that welcome, that safety in that new environment as their language grows, right? So we can't expect our students to grasp the language immediately. Obviously, students are very resilient. They are very quick learners, but as they're learning the language, what are those other responsibilities that we have as community members and as educators to be there to build that sense of belonging? We also mentioned the idea of some of our families being, or some of our students being unaccompanied minors. So maybe there is not parental support in the home. So how do we support even more than we would our classic student in the classroom? We must support also in a parental role sometimes as well. So those are some reflections we had on that first question. And the second question, we leaned more into that educational component. So talking about how we do not have all of Europe or even all of the world assessment for EL students to figure out where they're at on the scope of their education. We mentioned there is a lot of interrupted learning. We don't know where our students are lots of times when they come to us. And so how do we figure out the gaps? How do we figure out what they did learn? And then how do we figure out how do we fill in the gaps of the things that they don't know yet so that they can reach the level of their peers? And so an assessment tool or creating an assessment tool that is valid for refugees, that is not just within one cultural context, but one that applies to many cultural contexts. And talking about it takes a village, right? We need to be training the educators, training across interdisciplinary, across all teachers, so that as a school system, as countries, we can be uniting together and feeling equipped. Trauma-informed care is also huge. So how do we, use the supports of our social workers and others in the community to come alongside and help support our students.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much. As you are pointing rightly from the recommendations you have shared, it is a complex and holistic approach, and we need different actors to come together in order to address some of the key challenges that in many of the groups were addressed and discussed to find a better and best solution for those challenges. So I would like to open now the floor, and first of all also to thank all presenters from each group for sharing challenges and recommendations, a very fruitful and full list, I would say, especially when it comes to recommendations. We will get the summary and a short report, of course, of those inputs from you after the webinar. But I would like now to open the floor also for some reflections from your side, from all the groups, from the inputs you have received now from presenters, or if you have some questions, comments, suggestions, please take the floor. Now in the next maybe maximum 10 minutes, we can have a space for some reflections and final comments also from your side before we close the meeting. I see you can also pose your hand. I will introduce you. I saw first Mabruka and then Eleonora Mura. Mabruka Rayachi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alexandra. I think it's very important that we collect all these good things which worked in our communities, and in our schools, and collect them and distribute them on all these countries, because I am sure that we have very, very successful mechanisms which have worked. For example, in Austria, we have used the grandmothers who are in retirement. They come to school and read with the children. So that they can quickly, because the teacher can't be for many children. So the grandmothers come for 1 or 2 children a day, and every time it's the same mother for the same child. And so it's a very good, successful thing here in Austria. I don't know whether it is in other countries. And I think in every context, there is such ideas. And it's good to collect them and to distribute them to all, so that we can profit of them. This is what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mabruka. Very good advice and example from Austria. I would invite now Eleonora Mura, who raised her hand, to take the floor.
Yes, Alexandra, very quickly, and it builds a lot on what Mabruka said, is really involving, thinking outside of the school and involving also the host family. This is something that Marilena showed very well in her example, and we discussed it also in the small group. I mean, really how important it is that the whole community participate in welcoming and also in learning about diversity. So really creating these spaces with extracurricular activity, with spontaneous activities as well, like, baking case. Sometimes in the kindergarten where my girls go, we had international breakfasts where as parents we were invited to bring what we would eat for breakfast. And these are very simple things that can really unite the community and can make the learners feel more welcome and feel that they have something to contribute and give this sense of purpose as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonora. Very, very nice suggestion. I'm also reading some questions. I think Suchit is addressing those in chat. So I open the floor for some other inputs. Razika, you have raised your hand, I can see. Please, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I try to come back to the guy who witnessed, his experience, or he shared his testimony, on his experience, talking about bringing the parents to school and sharing, education with their nephews or with their nieces. It's an amazing opportunity to develop those life skills. And this is also an opportunity to make the other know about one's culture. So it's not always that we know about the culture of the hosting country. It is an opportunity for us to make our culture known, okay? Through baking, through maybe embroidering, through gardening. So here we have got many strategies to make those refugees, make their culture apparent for the hosting country. Thank you.
Thank you, Razika, very much for bringing also the aspect of intercultural encounter and intercultural exchange. This is really essential in this discussion. Anyone else would like to add a comment or contribute, reflect? Please, if I'm not able to see you, I need to go.
Quello che avete detto è importante, perché noi abbiamo invitato i genitori dei bambini stranieri quando abbiamo fatto il corso di cucina, e loro hanno cucinato ognuno una pietanza del loro paese e l'hanno spiegata agli altri genitori italiani. Grazie per aver ricordato e sottolineato questo aspetto. La presenza dei genitori è preziosa soprattutto per gli italiani, è sempre quello di cui si parlava. Grazie.
Thank you, Marilena. Thank you very much for underlying once again the importance of the family engagement as well. Anyone else would like to take the floor? In case I'm not able to see, please raise your hand. I see Suchit. Suchit, did you raise your hand?
I did. I wanted to reflect on something that many groups highlighted, which is on teacher training. And there was all the groups almost highlighted the importance of teacher training. And what I'm reflecting is training on what? What specifically? There are so many aspects of teacher training that's important, but in order to address this aspect of intercultural learning, solidarity, what is it that the teacher needs to be empowered on? I heard in some groups talking of pedagogy that is inclusive. So what is that pedagogy? How do we do that? I think is an important thing to reflect further and identify when we proceed.
Thank you, Suchit, for opening this question. I see the hand of Gelia Roni.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to answer to what Suchit just said and to take you back to what Dora presented in the teacher training we do in Greece. If you start with inclusive education as the base, as the foundation, inclusive education and intercultural skills, then you have the basics. Somebody who is interculturally competent will be willing to learn about differentiated learning, citizenship education, democracy education, ethics education. So you just need to work with the basic intercultural competence of teachers, which goes to all teachers. Nectaria Paleologu mentioned it before. Refugee education is not a matter of just language teachers. It's a matter of everybody. So we cannot have teacher training on how to teach Greek as a second language, for example, or Italian. We're talking about a cross-cutting training for all, which is inclusive education, intercultural education, and ethics. And if you have this, then you're on the right way, because the new term in pedagogy is willingness, because we see that many people do have the knowledge, they do have the skills, they're not willing to deploy them to refugees. So it's not a matter of knowledge anymore, not even about skills. We have the attitude now and the willingness. There are so many amazing Greek teachers who are trained in differentiated learning, and they just are not willing to deploy it to refugees. So we need to set the foundation, and then we build on subject teaching. And this is why I love so much the program that Dora presented in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is very important what you have underlined here. Willingness, definitely, and openness to actually implement, to share. You are saying that teachers do have skills and knowledge, but it is also a question if they are willing to implement that and share. I think we came to the end of a very fruitful webinar we had today, and the list of recommendations is really long. Suchit promised that the team of organizing team will provide a list of these recommendations to all of you, and we do encourage you to distribute and advocate for these recommendations, especially those who are tackling the role and importance of intercultural but also interreligious dialogue. Somebody mentioned the role of religious leaders. I believe they are powerful voices that can bring together communities, especially when it comes to spaces for intercultural learning and languages and everything that we have tackled today, including the support for tutors and trainings that we have discussed today. So it's a long list. It's a long list of recommendations that can be applicable in different contexts throughout Europe, both in those countries that are considered to be transit countries, but also those that are considered to be destination countries. So we can apply much of these discussions from today in our own context, and this is why it is important to advocate and to distribute these recommendations in your own institutions and to try to apply in your own work. And having said this, I would like also to invite participants of this webinar to continue dialogue using the Solidarity website online forums, since this project is an ongoing one, and I'm happy to announce already the next webinar, which is going to take place on 21st of April, entitled Psychosocial Support for Resilience and Well-Being of Children in the Context of Migrant and Refugee Inclusion in Europe. So this is not the end, it is the end of the first webinar, but it is a continuity of Solidarity project that has just started. So please keep engaged with the project organizers and keep engaged with the webinars that are coming in the future. I believe that these discussions can bring a positive change, and especially the examples that we have heard today from our young colleagues and participants are encouraged as success stories, as positive examples, and more positive examples are always welcomed because they reflect the positive change that can be brought to our societies. I'm now giving the floor to Maria Lucia, thanking all you participants, speakers, and having the honor to be the moderator of this webinar. Thank you so much. Now I'm giving the floor to the organizers, Maria Lucia, for her final words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexandra, for this excellent moderation and for the support. And thank you each and every one of the participants who join us today to share your experiences, your motivation, your ideas, recommendations. And Maria Lucia Uribe, I'm the director of Arigato International Geneva. And on behalf of the Integration Center for Migrant Workers of the Ecumenical Refugee Program and Arigato, I want to thank you, but in particular, I want to thank also the Network for Dialogue of KAICIT. The Network for Dialogue is a European-wide platform that brings together faith-based organizations and civil society organizations to promote the use of dialogue and develop more effective recommendations for social inclusion policies for migrants and refugees in Europe. And thanks to this network of dialogue, we have brought together the Integration Center for Migrant Workers of the Ecumenical Refugee Program of the Church of Greece and Arigato to develop this program with a series of webinars and a dialogue. So as Alexandra said, this is the beginning. We thank all our panelists, Yusuf, Murtaza, Dora, Marilena, Molly, for these excellent presentations, and all of you for the great discussions. We invite you to continue connected. There are forum discussions on the website. We will put all the PowerPoint presentations and the different materials on the site so you can download them, but feel free to join because I think we started excellent discussions today and we'd like to hear more from you, and we'd like you to, of course, to continue this dialogue and join us for the next webinar. So again, thank you so much also to our interpreters that stayed with us until very late. And to all of you, and we look forward to having you in the next webinar and to continue the dialogue with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
bye.
Maybe we take a picture if you all put your cameras.
Yes.
If you can put on your cameras, we can have a picture. Great. Oh, I have my daughter coming for the picture. Her picture and she just rocket. Okay, so a big smile. 1, 2, 3 now. And then just another one. Please just wait a minute because I think we have several here. And then I'm gonna take another picture. So 1, 2, 3. Now. That's it. So thank you so much and have a very good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Grazie a tutti, arrivederci.
Grazie a
Poi
tutti.
ci direte dove sarà possibile rivederlo il video?
See, it will be recorded. It is recorded.
You will
Okay,
find it on
thank
the website. We'll upload it on the website for everybody to access.
Grazie a tutti e buona serata. Alla prossima. Bye bye.
Thank you, Graciela and Juliana, for your service of interpretation.
You're welcome. Juliana must be very tired.
I am.
She did all of the work.
I couldn't switch on my light, so I'm in the dark. I'm in the dark. Anyway.
Okay. Thank you, Juliana.
Thank you, Graciela. But you speak Italian. You're Italian, aren't you?
Yes, I'm of Italian extraction. Yes,
you are.
But I speak both Italian and English. But I work more into English than into Italian, so
okay.
I feel comfortable with English.
Oh, better.
No, with Italian as well. I go into Italian. It's my mother language, but I don't use it that often.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Everybody.
All right. Bye now. Is there anything you want to say? No.
No,
we'll be following up with you, email Graciela and Juliana after this.
Sorry? No, I didn't get that. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that Vera will be in touch with the two of you over email after this.
We are ready, yeah. We are ready.
All right.
Okay. All right.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Suchis. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.